What's up, everybody, and welcome to Blue Turnip's Bad Podcast about good music. My name is Kyle,
Hey, I'm Brian.
and we are two-thirds of the rock band Blue Turnip, and we're here to talk about great music over the past 20 years' time. We are doing this series to talk about each of our top 5 albums, starting at 2000 and going up through 2020. And today, we're talking about 2004.
2004, baby.
Last time Brian gave us a little teaser and said that 2004 was one of his weakest years in music of all time.
It's true. Thanks to Kyle, I made a little bit better. He gave me some reminders. So it's pretty solid. It ended up being a pretty solid list.
Oh, nice.
Not many honorable mentions, but I got 5 pretty solid ones, I think.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Yeah, for me, it's kind of opposite. For me, I was stacked to the max. I was heartbreaking cutting some of these albums for me. So 2004 is maybe not the. I think 2005 is probably my most overall number one year, but 2004, it's great.
Nice.
Yeah.
Right on.
Well, nice. If you've never listened to us before, welcome. We're so glad to have you here with us. Just to kind of talk you through what we're going to do today. So both Brian and I will count down our top 5 albums from the year 2004 a little later on in the episode. And before that, we always like to take a couple minutes to talk about something that's kind of interesting to us, whether it's something about our band Blue Turnip or something else that's just interesting to us that's come across our musical lives recently. And at the very end of our 2003 episode, we ended up sort of hinting at the idea of deluxe albums and bonus tracks. And so we thought that that would be our opening segment today, was just to take a little bit of time to talk about why Brian and I hate deluxe albums and bonus tracks. Yeah. So let's start with you, man, because I was when you mentioned this at the end of our last episode, I got super excited because I was like, oh, I didn't know that like I wasn't the only person in the world who didn't like bonus tracks and stuff. So yeah, what are some of your thoughts about deluxe albums and bonus tracks?
Oh, I hate them. Just like you said, they suck. I think the reason, like the main reason is I'm just like, I don't know if it's just me, like a personal thing, but I feel like a band created an album to be the way that it was for a reason. And when you get to the last song, you want the last song to be the last song. And I can't stand when it keeps going when it's not supposed to, for several reasons. Like, it's too long when they do it. They're always bad songs because they're always almost like throwaways or like remixes or the radio version. Like, I hate it, dude. So
Yeah.
yes, simple as that. There's a few reasons, but there's probably more.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head, especially like I know you and I are both very much people who really appreciate a good album. And I know in episodes past, you've talked about the importance of flow and like how so many of these great albums just have like a really awesome flow and a really purposeful ending. And when, like you said, when it just keeps going past the ending, it's like, it's
Yeah.
almost like there's a cut. Like it reminds me of like there's 2 comparisons that I think of. Like one is if you read like a book that you really love, and then there's an epilogue at the end that's like 4 pages long, and it's like the worst epilogue you've ever read. You're like, oh my gosh. Or deleted scenes. Like if you like watch a movie and you're like, man, this movie's great. It's like, oh, there's deleted scenes, there's extra stuff. And it's like, yeah, no wonder they cut these. Like they're not good. They're bad scenes.
I know, dude. It's so true. Like, why not just make it an EP? Like, I'm a big Coldplay fan, and that's something that they do that I like. They don't do extended versions. They take their throwaways and they turn it into like a B-sides EP. Like they did Prospects March after Viva La Vida. Those are all from that recording session, and they just made it like a separate album. And I that's fine with me. It's okay.
Yeah.
But don't add them on to the OG.
Yeah, Prospects March is probably my favorite Coldplay album, which makes sense.
Gotta love those throwaways. And like this just popped into my head. Like me and Kyle listen to Christian music quite frequently, especially like older rock stuff we've talked about. And I knew we were going to talk about this, and I was thinking about Audio Adrenaline. Back in the day, Christian radio stations weren't allowed to have electric guitar. Do you remember that? So on the albums you would buy, you'd listen to the whole album, and then they'd throw on at the end like the radio edited version, like Ocean Floor by Audio Adrenaline comes to mind, like the piano version. So you hear
Yep.
the same song twice on one album, and the second time you hear it, it's like a 10 times
Just
worse
worse.
version.
Yeah. I know actually one of the albums that's on my honorable mentions today, Fight the Tide by Sanctus Real. They did the same thing with the opening track on that album. It's they just throw that radio version at the end there, and it just like takes out the electric guitars, and you're like, oh, thanks, like wonderful to hear.
Yeah. You can feel
I will say, like, one thing I don't mind. I don't mind if an artist releases. Well, I have mixed feelings about this because sometimes one of the things that I don't like about deluxe albums is I feel like they're just a big time cash grab. It's just like a chance to get extra money from fans for a worse product.
exactly.
And I understand, especially nowadays, especially the past year or so when like touring has been way down and artists aren't making a lot of money. Like in the past year, a lot of the artists that I like have done extended albums and reissues and deluxe versions. And I totally get that. I'm not trying to like people are trying to make a living. I totally understand. But there are definitely cases where it's like, let's get a few extra bucks. Like, let's throw two like songs that we decided to throw out on purpose on here, like slightly change up the cover art, like with a picture that we decided not to use, or something like that.
Yeah.
And like that, it rubs me the wrong way a little bit sometimes.
Same.
Especially when it's an artist that like that you have put in a lot of time and money supporting already, like somebody you've seen live a bunch of times and you've bought physical copies of all their albums and stuff, and then like they come out and they always have these messages that are like please buy this, like it's so much better, it's a totally different release, and it's like, no, it's not.
No, it's the same, but it's worse.
Really not.
Yeah. And like streaming is so big now, and it's something that really bothers me about deluxe is Spotify a lot of times only has the deluxe version. So you can't hear it the way it's supposed to be. I listen to Muse all the time, and their last album, Simulation Theory, it's a really dumb concept. Like it's about life being a simulation, but they made alternate reality versions of all their songs. It's all the songs again, but different and worse. And on Spotify, the only version of the album they have is the super deluxe. So it's like every song again. It's like literally twice as long, listening to the same song twice. I'm like, why do they do that? That's their only option. Like, you have to listen to the alternate reality version. It'll blow your mind.
Well, speaking of Muse, man, I know before we started recording, you were telling me about Japanese bonus tracks. What's going on with those things?
Yeah, so I noticed on Muse specifically and a bunch of other bands, there's these things on the end of albums called Japanese bonus tracks. I didn't know about it until I looked on Spotify. I'm like, what the heck is a Japanese bonus track? They always slip like one extra track at the very end, in parentheses says Japanese bonus track. So obviously I got curious, looked it up, and I'll give you like a little reason why. According to the internet, it says imported CDs are cheaper to purchase in Japan than domestic ones. So bonus tracks are placed on the Japanese version of albums like as an incentive for locals to buy the domestic albums, like instead of sending money to get the album from America or something. So basically Japanese people are like forced to have a bonus track, which is hilarious because we hate bonus tracks. So yeah, man, that's why just so like they'll buy locally. It's kind of interesting.
That really is. Yeah, and I never heard of that before you mentioned it before we started recording. It's like what a wild little phenomenon that is.
Yeah. I know, man. I was like, the Japanese people have it rough. It's always the worst song too. Like we were talking about, like they just slip in one extra. They're like, oh, for the Japanese. They'll love it. Yeah, but same deal, man. It just like tag it on the end ruins everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just kind of funny that it's always like that for them.
Yeah, literally every time.
Yeah. But yeah, you'll see them every now and then. But like for whatever reason, Muse specifically has like a lot of them. But I don't know.
Yeah, maybe they're really popular. I know certain artists get very popular in certain countries, even if they're not from. Like I know Ben Folds that we've talked about on the podcast before, very popular in Australia.
Yeah, that's true.
So maybe Muse is just got that Japanese fan base going on over there.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, so Ben Folds probably has like Australian bonus tracks.
He might.
Who knows?
I feel like on one of the old Ben Folds albums, my wife would know this for sure, but I feel like they recorded a song in another language. Like one of their songs, they just re-recorded it in and released it in another country. I can't remember, like the Beatles did with like when they released and recorded a couple songs in German.
Yeah.
That were just like the same, but just they were singing in German instead. I think Ben Folds did that, but I can't remember what country it was and what language it is. But this is good podcasting right here. So if you want to look into it yourself, maybe you can be like Ben Folds other language. Yes. It's the Google search.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Well, there you go, guys. If that doesn't convince you that deluxe albums are just not it, then I don't know what will.
Yeah, I'm convinced. I was convinced before we even started.
Or perhaps you and I are the only two people in the world who have this opinion, and everyone's just going to be like raging on us.
Yeah, probably. Like deluxe is always better when it's like food, like the deluxe like burger from Wendy's or something, like the Bacon Junior Deluxe. This is dumb. But
yeah, put that onion on
there. Maybe it's over the top.
If deluxe albums work that way, to where like you open the CD case, whatever, and there was just like that extra onion sitting on top of the CD, special sauce squirted on there.
Yeah. Dude, we could totally do that. Like, that's such a good idea. Deluxe albums.
Next time Blue Turnip hits the studio and records, we'll only release a deluxe version, and it won't be any extra tracks, but it'll have some extra condiments inside. And if you download it from iTunes or whatever, you can get like, we'll include like little pictures, little JPEGs of like ketchup and mustard.
Yeah. Or just like throwing a coupon if like somebody buys it on iTunes.
Yeah. Some like old expired coupon that we cut out ourselves.
Like one of those crappy ones where it's like you get free fries if you get a large combo, or like everything has to be large, you get like a free small fry. Yeah,
actually, this is a little off track, but we got a couple minutes here. So I really like, I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but every now and then an artist that I like will put in something extra. If I order something from them, like I know one of my favorites, which we'll talk about in a later episode, is Rob Cantor. And I bought a t-shirt from him from his store once. And when it shipped to me, it came with like a couple extra goodies on the inside. Like one thing that he was doing was he had all these like old photographs, like black and white photographs that I guess he had just like gathered over the years that like weren't of like his family or anything, but just like, you know, other people or landscapes or whatever. And he just like signed his name and like a little note on there. And it's just like this little keepsake that you have in addition to what you bought. And
that's cool.
I don't know. Some artists will like it's kind of cool, like talking about like cool deluxe things or add-ons, like when you get those little extras that you weren't expecting, it's like, oh yeah, wow, look at this is kind of a weird little thing. It's cool.
Yeah, different kind of deluxe. Like in like vinyl, there's a posters in the albums a lot. So like I got Dark Side of the Moon recently, and they have like the original posters from when it was sold.
Oh,
so that's pretty cool.
That is cool.
I like that.
Yeah, I know you and I are both big Flight of the Conchords fans as well, and they actually, even in their CDs, they folded them up real nice, but they have really nice, cool posters in their CDs. Yeah,
dude, and props to vinyl, because I don't think they're deluxeable, because they have to be like 22 minutes per side or whatever. I could be wrong, but
just make the record like a little bit bigger.
Yeah. Deeper grooves.
All right, cool. Well, that was a great talk about deluxe albums. Hopefully you're convinced of our opinion, because we're right as always.
As always.
So on to 2004, the reason we're here today to talk about the best albums from the year 2004. So as usual, we'll start off with some rapid fire honorable mentions. There's a couple in here that I just really wanted to talk about, even though I don't want to spend a ton of time on these. We'll get to the top 5 in just a sec. So first one I've got on here, Brian, I know this is one that you really like. I think we found these guys at the same time when they had that track on the X, those Christian rock X CDs.
Classic. Yeah.
Crashings by Falling Up. Really, nobody sounds like Falling Up. Like, it's just a band that you're not going to hear other people sound. I guess it's like hard rock, electro, prog-ish. I don't know, like a little bit punk at times. Just like super genre bending, really cool. But yeah, if you want to hear some like pretty heavy, very unique tunes, Crashings by Falling Up, that's a good one. You got anything about that one, Brian, you want to mention?
Yeah, no, dude, I love it. I actually have that one on CD. I like that song. What was the song that was on that compilation?
I think it was Exit Calypso. That was the one that was on on the X.
It's like, it's pretty hard rock and stuff, but I haven't listened to it in a long time. Like I'm kind of blanking, but I do remember the vocalist had a really unique voice. Yeah, dude, it was really fun to listen to, and it was definitely different for what was coming out at the time. And to go back on Deluxe, I actually have like a remixed album that has like a bunch of those songs remixed. I hate remix albums too.
Oh yeah, it's always bad.
Yeah, just wanted to plug that in before we moved along. Yeah, dude, a good choice, man. I'll definitely want to revisit that because it's been a long time.
Yeah, oh, go ahead, man. Sorry.
No. I was just gonna say I was a really big fan when I was younger, and for whatever reason they slipped off the radar for me.
Yeah. If you're a fan of really cool guitar riffs, I mean, some of their riffs, because they do some kind of interesting stuff where they're not necessarily always like stuck to one key, especially for like intros to songs or like little weird riffs and stuff they do. And they have some riffs that are just like not only does the guitar sound nasty, but like the chords that they're changing to, it's like, oh my gosh, like this is nasty. It's just really, really cool, cool stuff.
Agreed.
All right, cool. Another one this is one that I actually had I'm still old school and had the iPod on shuffle this morning while I was doing some stuff, and a song from this album came on. So Revenge of the OC Supertones by the OC Supertones. We've talked about the Supertones in episodes past. Really super fun band. This album's probably front loaded. I'd say like the A side, the first 6 songs are really, really cool. The B side maybe not quite as strong, but just really fun, happy Supertones music as always.
They always kill it. And like you said, dude, I think the first 2 songs are my favorite. It's like some of the Supertones' best. But yeah, it's definitely front loaded. But it's still awesome. Like it's always fun to listen to the Supertones.
And we played. Didn't think about this before, but Blue Turnip played the second song from that. I'm trying to think of what it's called now. The one. Oh man.
Hold on,
Where I Find You. I got there. I had to go through all the lyrics. Where I Find You is called. Yeah. So a little Blue Turnip nugget of history is I think we played that at middle school fall festival.
Yeah, and we only played it once.
Yep.
So if somebody has a recording of that, I'd love to see it.
All right, there we go. Here's one that I mentioned earlier in the episode, Fight the Tide by Sanctus Real. This one, like, it was heart-wrenching to cut this from my top 5 because this album was just like so important to my growing up and kind of developing the style of music that I like to listen to. It's pretty much good old-fashioned rock and roll, but it's very, very modernly recorded, very modern guitar tones. And it's one of those albums, like Brian, you talked about Shootin' Annie Eels, that was written and recorded really fast. I think it was like a 3-week turnaround for this record. Awesome vocals. And just, it was an album that I played on repeat when I was a kid. I just remember singing these songs all the time and like probably annoying the crap out of you guys walking around the house singing these songs at the top of my lungs over and over again. So yeah, Fight the Tide, Sanctus Real.
Is that the one? Is it the song called "The Fight Song"? Is
Yep.
that one on it? Such a good song.
Yeah.
That's my favorite Sanctus Real time period. I think that one and The Face of Love, were they back to back?
Back to back.
Those, yeah, those are my favorite. Like they're one of those bands like Audio Adrenaline. Like if you heard them now, you wouldn't believe what they heard like what they sounded like back in the early 2000s.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially Matt Hammock's solo stuff. It's like so Christian radio now. And yeah, you go back and listen to that stuff. And I got to see them on that DCLA that you and I went to. I can't remember if you were at this one or not, or if this is the one that I was at by myself.
Yeah, I didn't see them. I was at the Starfield one.
Yeah, Hawk Nelson opened up for Sanctus Real in one of the ballroom shows one night, and like 2/3 of the fans that were there to see Hawk Nelson, because they were like the band that was there like kind of for kids. They were like the big time teenage band.
Yeah.
And when Hawk Nelson played, like the first like 3 rows of fans left. And so I just got to like run right up to the front row.
Oh, nice.
And because people just didn't really know who Sanctus Real was at the time. And I was like literally could reach out and touch the guitar. It was one of the only shows I've ever seen front row.
That's sweet, man.
Yeah.
I actually saw Sanctus Real at the Convocation Center in Boone.
Oh, nice.
For whatever that festival that they used to do every year. They don't do it anymore.
Praise Fest.
Yeah, and like Seventh Day Slumber played there once, and Josh Wilson.
Grits.
Yeah.
Ebo Norman. Yeah.
That was always fun.
It was. Yeah, but yeah, you're right. Face of Love was the one right after this. It's a great album. And then We Need Each Other after that. That was a good one too.
Yeah, it was a really good one.
So yeah, those 3 in a row. I don't think any of them ended up making my countdowns, but yeah, definitely a strong run of good rock music.
Yeah.
Cool. And then we got the debut album by the band Starfield. It's just called Starfield. Hadn't quite honed their sound yet. You know, it's very much like a debut album, but like the songs are really good. This is an album where like you know, you may not want to listen to it from start to finish because it starts to run together a little bit, but every single individual song in the album is good. They're all quality, and you can really see where they were headed. They pop up on my countdown a couple of times in the future. So yeah, really cool stuff from Starfield. This is kind of a weird little wild card. So I think all my honorable mentions are Christian albums except for this one. This one's not a Christian album. So one of my friends is a huge Tears for Fears fan. And he like was always sending me their music and like burning me CDs and like, dude, you just got to listen to Tears for Fears. And I was so like, like they're 80s, like they're going to suck. Like, I just don't want to listen to it. And he finally convinced me to listen to it. He was like, you got to listen to this album all the way through. And it's called Everybody Loves a Happy Ending. And it's like a reunion album for them because they had some like big time fighting because Tears for Fears is basically 2 dudes. And they had some big time fighting, split. One guy kept the name Tears for Fears and the other guy like went off and did his own thing. And so then like years after that, in 2004, they got back together and did this album together. It was the first one they'd done together in a long time. They kind of like overcame their differences. And it's super cool. Nice. The first song like literally blew me away. Like I had no idea that Tears for Fears was capable of like just like rocking out this like unbelievably catchy power pop, like just like it's a song you could listen to over and over again. And the whole album is just really, really cool, really well produced, awesome sound. It doesn't sound as like 80s and dated as some of their older stuff does. Really high quality music. Yeah, Everybody Loves the Happy Ending by Tears for Fears.
I'll have to check that one out because I always like Tears for Fears hits, like the ones you hear on the radio. Everybody Wants to Rule the World. I freaking love that intro, dude.
That's a good song.
It's so good. And they had the one that was like shout. Was that them?
I couldn't say. I don't know. Yeah, I pretty much.
But they had like a few good hits.
Yeah, I know.
Mad World.
Yep, Mad World. The Seeds of Love album. They had like Bad Man Song and a couple big ones on there. But
yeah, I always liked them. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, it's cool.
I didn't even know it existed. Sweet.
Neither did I. Yeah, thanks to my friend Pete for
there you go.
sending this out to me. If you're listening to this, Pete,
dude. Yeah, I know Pete. What's up?
And then finally, my last honorable mention is Unravel by Tom Booth. So Tom Booth, he's a guy that I found. If you listened to episodes in the past, you know that I lead worship, and There's this tool that I use to search and find new music if I'm looking to like for a specific like scripture reference or sermon topic or whatever. And this dude just kept popping up. His name is Tom Booth, and like every song, I was like, "This song's good. This song's good. Like, who is this guy?" And I finally looked it up, and he's been pumping out music. Like, this is his debut album in 2004, Unravel, and he's pretty much been pumping out like an album per year from 2004 to today.
Wow.
And you know, it ebbs and flows in terms of like what you really want to listen to and what's like, oh yeah, that's nice. But this first album, I mean, there's 7 or 8 songs on here that like I could just play on repeat that are just awesome. The title track, Unravel, really, really cool song. About kind of based around the idea of like this college football coach who had this like public meltdown on TV, and it kind of like ruined his whole career, and like the idea that like one day can have a huge effect on the rest of your life, and like how you pick up the pieces after that. And yeah, but just a really, really cool record. Cool dude, Tom Booth.
Awesome. Yeah, I remember you sent me his stuff. He's cool.
Oh.
I'll have to dig deeper.
All right, well, there's my honorable mentions from 2004. If you're interested in Christian music, that's kind of jam packed with a lot of classic Christian music in there. So, well, if you've listened in the past, we're going to do our top 5 a little bit different today, just because Brian and I have some overlap in our top 5. So to try and keep it interesting and surprising for you guys, so Brian is going to count down his entire top 5. And 2 of his top 5 are on mine as well, so we'll discuss those when we get to them. And then I'll finish up the 3 remaining albums that I have on my top 5 afterwards. Yes. So there you go. You've been told of the format, so no surprises from here on out. Yes. So Brian, I'm going to turn it over to you. Hit us with your number 5 from 2004, my man.
My number 5 is a classic. All the people my age are going to go nuts. American Idiot by Green Day. Woo! I know we've used this word a lot, but this is like a nostalgic album for me. Like, it's not great, but it's like one of those ones that I love just because it's what I grew up listening to with all my homies. Like growing up listening to a lot of Christian music, this was like really like edgy to listen
rebellious
to. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, some like not so innocent lyrics. Like a lot of like F-bombs and stuff, like listen to it secretly, like in the basement with like headphones on. But these are fun songs, man. Green Day, they're still kicking out stuff. They've been around since the 90s, and they're like they're one of the original like founders of that like modern punk rock sound. Just huge band. And this album just has so many fun songs and so many catchy hits, like the title track and the opening track, American Idiot. So awesome, man. Like everybody likes Boulevard of Broken Dreams. I mean, come on.
I still
it's great.
Do.
It's great.
Unironically, I loved it the first time I heard it, and I still do.
Like, how could you not, man? Holiday was a great song. Just like, and there's a lot of sleeper tracks on here too. They're not as good. Like the hits are the best ones, just because that's what we listened to when we were younger. But overall, a really solid album, super fun listen. And I've always had a soft spot for Green Day just because that's what we listened to when we were growing up.
Yeah. I think you mentioned I think my 2 favorites from here are American Idiot and Boulevard of Broken Dreams. One interesting thing about this one, I know you and I both like tracks that go together. And this album's like built that way. It's like right. There's several songs that are like paired up of like, if you're gonna listen to one, you gotta listen to the other one.
Yeah, you literally have to.
Yeah, I think that's
like they're
cool.
In the same. It's interesting because like I'm looking at the track list. It's like the song Holiday / Boulevard of Broken Dreams. So it's like 8 minutes long, but it's 2 separate songs, which is really cool. Yeah. And I think they might have like separated them. Oh yeah, they definitely separated them for like radio purposes.
Sure.
But another reason why albums are cool. Like if you listen to them all the way through, it's meant to be played like that for a reason.
Get that experience, baby.
Yeah. Dude, but yeah, Green Day rules, man. Straight up like emo days, just brings back good memories
Oh yeah,
for
it really
sure.
does. I think when I was in eighth grade, wait, I don't know if because we went to the same middle school, obviously, you and I. Did you guys when you graduated from eighth grade? Did you have like a big ceremony where you guys like sang a song and stuff?
Yeah,
We sang a Green Day song.
dude,
Uh,
everybody
I
did.
think we sang.
It's when wake me up when September ends.
No, no, what's the one that's like
Oh no.
the dead skin on the road one? Oh, dang it.
Dude, it's like the classic like graduation song.
Yeah. Oh
Because I
well.
think we went to the same school, obviously, and like I remember every grade did it like
Yeah.
forever. Dude, now yeah, it's bothering me.
Oh, time of your life. There we
Yes,
go. There
dude.
we go. I had to Google some of the
I hope
lyrics.
you
I was
have
like,
the
all I can
time
think
of
of.
your life.
Yeah, bunch of like 13-year-olds like up there like holding back tears, like I want to go to high school, so scary.
Yeah. That's hilarious. Oh
All
man.
right, man. Solid pick. Number 5, American Idiot by Green Day.
Yeah, a little throwback for you.
Yeah, man.
I think it still holds up too. Like we talk about a lot of stuff that like from the early 2000s didn't hold up well, but they still like this is such a popular sound today still.
Mm.
Not as much so. Like I have a friend who like specifically listens to stuff like this, like Green Day and Sum 41 still around.
Mm.
It's just like it's a cool sound.
Yeah.
Gets you pumped.
Yeah, I mean, Green Day, like we talked about this with the Strokes. Like when Green Day comes on, you know it's Green Day. They have
Yeah.
a very specific, iconic sound, and it kind of when you have a sound like that, it almost keeps you from being dated, because when you hear the sound, you don't think of like, oh, like I remember 2004. You know, you don't think like, oh yeah, 18 years ago. You think like, oh, that's Green Day. Like
Right.
that
Exactly.
sounds like that. It's a cool thing for a band to have a sound that's that ingrained, where when people
Yeah.
hear it they don't think of like, I mean, you might think, you might immediately go back to a time period, but for me when I hear it, I'm just like, oh, that's Green Day.
Yeah.
Like
No, I agree with
that's
you.
what they sound
Yeah.
like. Yeah.
Yeah. Props to Green Day. All right. Keep the emo train rolling with my number 4. This is an album by a guy I discovered recently. His name is Elliott Smith, and this is his last album called From a Basement on the Hill. The reason I know about him is because I'm a big Death Cab for Cutie fan. And Ben Gibbard, their lead singer, did live streams, weekly live streams during the pandemic for like a couple of months. And he always talked about this guy, Elliott Smith, who's a huge inspiration for him. I'm like, well, if he inspired one of my favorite bands, I'm like, he's got to be pretty good, right? So I looked him up. I'm like, yeah, he's pretty good, man. But this album in particular, is kind of a special one. It actually came out after he had died. It was supposed to be a double album originally, but he didn't make it through. He's a huge drug user, major alcoholic, had a lot of problems. Um, and really interesting story behind this album. He was found dead in his home with 2 stab wounds. Um, and to this day, they don't know if it was suicide or if somebody murdered him.
Jeez.
Like kind of crazy. So yeah, he died in the middle of producing this album. Um, and I think like his girlfriend and one of his family members like released it for him,
Mm.
picked out the songs that were finished and released it for him. So it's like emotional to listen to. But I think it's one of his best pieces of work. Really, really heavy lyrically. He talks a lot about his problems, using drugs and drinking, just like a lot of mental illness. And it comes through in the song. So there's some pretty dark stuff on here, but like really good stuff. And he's got like your classic indie sound, just like lo-fi, it kind of reminds me of like Wilco, like his vocals a little bit. But yeah, man, really good stuff and just kind of cool to listen to, just based on the story of his life. So it's kind of like pays respect to his life almost. But yeah, he never got to live to see it released, but it's a good one.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's cool, man. I've never heard of him before. Like the in case you're interested in listening to the music that we're talking about today, there's a Spotify link in the description of the video below. Or if you don't have Spotify, up in the top right, there should be a card that has a link to a YouTube playlist. And there's a few songs from this album on there, Brian. And those are the first three that I heard. And it's kind of interesting sound. I almost like, I definitely hear some psychedelic influences, you know, without knowing anything about him. I don't know if that was like, you know, you mentioned like kind of the drug use. I don't know if that was kind of a sound or a thing that he was interested in, but yeah, it interesting sounding music for sure.
Yeah, very unique stuff. And I can definitely hear some Death Cab in there. So I know where Ben Gibbard's coming from. But yeah, great indie artist to check out. Not well known. Kind of like a cult following. But yeah, man. Sorry to get all dark and heavy on us, but it goes up, it gets positive from here. Yeah, let's lighten up the mood a little bit with my number 3, which is one of yours. What number is it for you?
Number 5.
Number 5. It is Eye to the Telescope by KT Tunstall.
Awesome. And to me, I know you mentioned at the beginning that 2004 is not your favorite year of music. To me, like I think this album is just a masterpiece of songwriting. Like as far as like just taking the pop song form of verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, and doing as much as you can possibly do with it. It's this record. This is like one of the best pop singer-songwriter records of all time. And that it's number 5 on my list, I'm like, holy, like this is such a good year music for me. Because I like when I was thinking about albums for our list, I was like, that was one that immediately shot up. I was like, oh man, I really love that one. I bet it's gonna be high. And then I was like, oh my gosh, it's like on the chopping block. Like this one might go. but yeah, well, I'll go ahead and say what you think about it, Brian.
Yeah, well, you actually reminded me of this one because I was like, dude, I'm struggling with 2004. You're like, did you remember KT Tunstall? And I was like, no, I did not. Shot up to my number 3 because it's awesome. Like the first 4 songs are probably my favorite. I don't know if it's like a strong out the gate thing, but I always like those the most. Just like Other Side of the World, Into Another Place to Fall, Into Under the Weather, Into Black Horse and the Cherry Tree. I mean, come on.
It's awesome.
Those are all freaking smash hits, and for good reason. So catchy, so fun to listen to, easy to listen to. And our sister Paige had this album when we were growing up, and she listened to it constantly. And like as her older brothers, you gotta like act like you don't like it. Like KT Tunstall, like this is so lame. And like you're like in the bedroom, like secretly like jamming to it. Yeah. So yeah, it's kind of funny. Like I always tried to act like I didn't like it, but I did. So there.
I can't remember trying to be sneaky about liking it because all I remember now is like just fawning over how awesome it is.
Yeah.
But I mean, like we talked about the songs, how good the songs are, and this is an interesting album where I mean, Black Horse and the Cherry Tree, that's a huge hit. Suddenly I See is also a huge hit from the album. And those are really, really good songs. I know sometimes when there's like those big pop radio hits, you get really tired of them, or maybe they're not the best songs on the album, but like those are really, really good songs. But the production on this album is awesome. And I don't know how much of that came from KT Tunstall or came from who she was working with, but it was so obvious that they had such a vision for what they wanted this record to sound like. It's extremely real sounding, but it's not raw. Like everything's very polished and clean. It's panned really well. If you listen to it in headphones, like the instruments that end up on either side is just really interesting to listen to. The guitars sound great. Her acoustic guitar sounds awesome all throughout the record. Yeah. So and all the like little backgroundy production stuff, like some of the synthy stuff in Another Place to Fall and Silent Sea and Under the Weather, like really helps to fill in the song. And those real reverb heavy keyboards like on Universe and You, and just like and Other Side of the World. Such a cool sounding album.
Agreed. I don't know if I already said this, but it's just easy to listen to, man. Like you just smile, just like it just makes you happy.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's got a great sound. Yeah, you nailed it when you said it's just good.
Yeah.
And we always talk about flow of albums. I think this one flows really well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Faux
Um,
cheesy.
and just a couple tidbits for us for some Blue Turnip history. So I know again it was a one and done. A song that we covered once and then never played again was "Other Side of the World."
Yeah.
The first song in the album. Our little sister Paige, she sang it with us.
And she was always so mad, mad that she had to sing it.
Yeah,
She hated singing like in front of people.
We got her up there from
She did
time to
good though.
time, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, she did a
Yeah.
great job.
Played the tambourine a little bit,
Yeah.
a little shaker. Yeah, but she always did a really good job of singing that song.
Yeah.
As much as she hated doing it at the time. She might we should have a reunion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I did, yeah, a couple other tidbits. I did remember when I filmed that X Factor virtual audition
Yeah.
for the vocal Universe and You, the seventh song of this album. It's I don't know if it's my favorite song on the album, but it's right up there.
It's
That was
awesome.
actually one of the songs that I didn't end up using it, but it was like we did a whole recording of it for my X Factor audition, which obviously I didn't even make it on the first round of the X Factor. But yeah, that was fun to record that day. And then Black Horse and the Cherry Tree, we did a benefit concert at my church a few years ago, where it was me, my wife, and we had two other songwriter friends of ours, Daniel Jackson, who you can find his EP on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever music is sold. Really cool 4-song EP. Daniel Jackson, his name is. And another one of our friends who she doesn't have any commercially available music, but she writes a lot of music as well. And we did this like storytellers concert where we like played some of our own songs and sort of told the story behind them. And we also played a handful of covers. We played some Beatles, and Black Horse and Cherry Tree was one of the covers that we played, and it came out awesome. And we have a video recording of it. My wife sang it and just did an excellent job. And if anybody's listening and it really wants to hear that cover, we don't have it on YouTube, but if you want to hear it, let me know and I'll get it up on YouTube for you and send it your way.
Sweet. I'd like to hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's new information to me. Stealing all the good songs for your solo projects.
Yeah, you know it, man. Well, sweet. So that's year number 3, and my number 5, Eye to the Telescope by KT Tunstall.
Brilliant. All right.
Great album.
Hopping into my number 2 here. This one is called Good News for People Who Love Bad News by Modest Mouse. That's what all the cool kids listen to in school.
Modest Mouse album.
It was popular with like the stoner kids and me.
And music reviewers loved this album.
Yeah, I think for good reason too. Like, I don't like any other Modest Mouse stuff. Like straight, that's just like a fact. And when I heard this, one of my buddies, well, Ezra Knight, one of our friends, loved Modest Mouse. He's like, dude, you gotta listen to this song, Ocean Breeze Salty, and learn how to play the drums to it. I was like, all right, man. I was like, oh yeah, this is nice. And because of that, I ended up buying the album, and it is far out, dude. Like, I don't know how it got so successful. I don't know if it's just because it was unique. Obviously, Float On is like still a huge song today, but there's not really any other hits on this. They kind of like did what they wanted. Everything sounds like dark and like shouldn't fit. Like there's like all these crazy like horn tracks on songs. There's one song where a baby just cries through the whole thing. It's like really weird stuff. And it's really cool. Like, obviously I'm a big indie guy, and this is like an iconic indie album. And like, I don't know, it's almost like sloppy, and it works. And their singer, he's got one of those voices where he's not a good singer, but like his voice suits the band so well. Sounds angry a lot of the time. But yeah, man, so many cool songs. Like Satin in a Coffin is one of my favorites. It's got like a banjo, but not like a traditional way you'd pluck a banjo, just like sounds like this guy just learned how to do this, and like they made it into a cool song. It's a lot of stuff like that. Let's see, there like it's a lot of songs. I think there's 14 songs.
You mentioned
Oh,
Satin in a
16
Coffin.
songs.
Satin in a Coffin is definitely my favorite from this record. That it's super short and it's got a lot of punch to it, man. That's a
Yeah,
cool
yeah,
song.
it's really cool. um I really like the Devil's Workday. That's the one with all the crazy horns I was talking about.
Mm.
um yeah, dude. And like the mellow songs are really good. The World at Large, it's not the opening track, but basically is. um yeah, dude, I love it. Always have, still listen to it today. It's interesting for me because I don't like any other Modest Mouse stuff, but this whole
Mm.
album really works for me. So,
Nice.
and you know, I used to listen to it all the time when I was growing up.
Oh
So
yeah,
you probably know it
yeah.
pretty well too. Yeah.
I have there's two random memories that come to my mind every single time that I hear a song from this album or that I think about this album. Well, three actually. One, I always think of our friend Beckett. Remember that played in our softball
Yeah,
team with
man.
us, and
Hmm.
he loved Modest Mouse so much. I think of him every single time that I hear a song from this album. Second, there was this MTV special. I think it was a special that just happened once and never happened again. Remember the video game Rock Band?
Yeah, of course.
So Float On was on one of the Rock Band games, and there was this
Uh,
MTV. It was like this hour, 2 hour long special where they did the competition, where they had like groups of four, like people who were friends or whatever in real life, get up on stage and play the video game Rock Band, and then they like got judged by the scoring system on the game and got
yeah,
judged by real life judges, and whoever
I
did the
kind of
best job
remember
won.
that.
And there was a band that they played Float On, and I always think of that when I hear that song. And finally, the third thing I think of is when me, you, and Andy were working together when we were doing the house painting stuff, um, and you guys always wanted to request songs from the radio station, and you wouldn't call. You'd make me call and request the songs for
Yeah,
you.
phone
And
anxiety.
we had like just called like an hour before to request something, and then you were like, I really want to hear Modest Mouse. I really want to. And so like we grabbed one of the other person's phones, so it was a different phone number, and I did like a fake Southern accent. And Colin was like, "Will you play Modest Mouse?"
It's
So
like
I always think of that when like
that's
those
like
are the
the
things I think
last
of.
person is like a Southern person would request Modest Mouse. You play some of that Modest Mouse, boy. I like that. Dude, that's so funny that you mentioned that. Like, I'm still the same way. I'm a pretty introverted person and have like some social anxieties, I guess, but like I hate calling people on the phone. I freaking hate it, dude. So yeah, I definitely remember making you call. Or like if I did call, I'd like go in the bathroom and like lock myself in so nobody could hear me. Like, will you please play some Modest Mouse?
Do you guys have Viva La Vida by Coldplay?
Start like crying a little.
Oh man, the good times, the good
Yeah.
times working house painting and listening
Yeah, man.
to indie radio.
Yeah. Plus, this album is very explicit. So another cool thing when you're a young kid.
Yeah, there you go.
Gotta
You've
love.
got, I know, two Green Day in this one. You got like all sorts of curse words
Yeah,
floating
dude. I
around.
didn't mess around.
It's
And
like
like,
we always say that the podcast is rated G, but the playlist, whoo,
yep, it's rough. It's so funny too because I would just refuse to say any cuss words. Like I let him ride every now and then now. Like I'm an adult, come on. But like when I was a kid, I would listen to him and just be like, yes, it's awesome. And like self-edit them when you're singing along. Yeah, good memories.
Yeah.
Yeah, but great album. Still listen to it all the time. All right, man. I'm gonna drop it to my number one if that's cool with you.
Oh, it's
Because I
cool.
know it's your number
4.
4.
Yeah.
I don't think we've ever matched up. We've had a lot of like crossover, but we've never had them in the same slot.
I
I don't
think
think.
Ben Folds, Rockin' the Suburbs,
Oh yeah,
we both had
Billy.
number one, but other than that, yeah, we haven't been
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
same slots.
Yeah, this one, great album. Who Killed the Zootons by the Zootons.
Awesome,
Yeah,
awesome
I'll let you
record.
start on this one since I've been rocking mine.
Oh man, it's so we'll talk about how because we both heard of this from a video game.
Mm-hmm.
Greatest baseball video game of all time. You can look it up and know that I'm not just saying that. It's true.
It's true.
EA Sports MVP Baseball 2005. We both still play it to this day. It's like what 16 years old at this point.
Yeah.
It's still the best baseball game ever. I played it yesterday, actually.
There
Played
you
again.
go.
But the second song on this album, Pressure Point, is one of the, I think it's got like a 6 or 7 song soundtrack for this video game. And it's the song really stands out. The game has a great soundtrack, first of all, but this song really stands out because of the beginning. The beginning, it starts off with that like really cool vocal thing that, and it's like very like it catches your ear right away. You're like, oh, what's this? And the way the song like kind of builds in, and he's got kind of like a real nasty vocal on top of it, and we were both like, this is a cool song. And it turned out that one of my friends loved these guys and had this album, and he burned the CD for me, and we joke because he burned it for me like all out of order, and it was missing songs, and it's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was missing Pressure Point. We were
Yeah,
pissed. Like, where's the song?
Where's the song? But it's like one song after another where you're just like, holy smokes, like this is such a good album.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of all over the place style wise, but their production is in such a way that it all fits together really well, because pretty much every song they've got 2 guitars, bass, drums, and saxophone. They have the saxophone player, which really adds to their sound. And so even though some of their songs range like country western singer songwriter, some of them range more like alternative indie, some of them range more straightforward rock and roll, it really fits together as a whole product, because their production is done just so well.
Mm-hmm.
Great
Yeah.
songs.
Yeah, kind of like I was talking about with Modest Mouse, their saxophone player is not a good saxophone player, and it rules.
Yeah,
it works. I mean, it's like she hits one note sometimes. It's like, rip, 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 rip. And you're like, yes, that's awesome. Like it just works. They just have such a good sound, really unique, and they're a little more popular than I thought they were, because I looked them up. They're fairly big for a while at least.
Yeah.
But this was their first one, right? Am I right about that? Dude, like what a way to start out. I like this is one of those albums I've got as my number one because I like every single song. There's not one I would throw away. They're all really cool, and like you said, they're all very different, but they all work together really well. Just like a few of my favorites off the top of my head, like Pressure Point, we already talked about. You Will, You Won't, so fun. Blue Turnip played that one live. Super fun to play live. I love the song Railroad. And I think one of my absolute favorites is Moons and Horror Shows.
Oh, great tune.
That one's got a really cool structure to it. It builds into like I don't know what you'd call it. It's kind of like almost bluegrassy in a way.
I'm going to mention it too because I'm a huge sucker for that song structure where this is what I refer to it as. You basically take the bridge of the song, and instead of making it the bridge, it's at the very end.
Right. Yeah.
So like
that's
you
what
have the whole song up front, and then at the end is the bridge. And like I feel like it's really cool. I feel like that it's a maybe not something you want to hear in every single song, but like Moons and Horror Shows, it's fantastic. So cool.
Yeah. But dude, every song's great for real. I love it.
No joke. Yeah. Every single song. You mentioned a lot of my favorites already. I love Don't Ever Think Too Much, the very last song, super like kind of catchy pop ditty. Remember Me, kind of similar in style to Moons and Horror Shows in some way, that sort of like country western ish. Nightmare Part 2, great riff. Confusion, super cool. So yeah, very like kind of pretty, nice melody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're
And
one
if
of
you
those
know,
bands. Oh, go ahead, dude.
go ahead, man. Oh, I was
Uh,
just gonna say, if you know, like, if you never heard of the Zootons, you've probably heard a Zooton song and not known it.
right.
They wrote the song Valerie
Hmm.
that Amy Winehouse did an extremely popular cover of it. Both versions are great. Both that's not a song that's on this album. That's on the Zooton's second one. But yeah, so you've probably heard of the Zootons just without knowing that you heard the
Yeah.
Zootons, because everyone knows that Amy Winehouse Valerie recording.
Yep. There's so many instances where the cover is more popular than the original. It's kind of freaky.
Mm,
Like uh, I actually did like I used to do a blog and I did like a list of 5 covers that became more popular than the originals. Oh,
mm.
like we were talking about Tears for Fears, like Mad World. The Gary Jules version was so much more popular than the original.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's just a little side note.
The Gary
It's
Jules version was so popular that Tears for Fears later went and recorded a version like his version.
oh really?
Yeah, they like went back and like
Like
did
this is better.
it.
But in this case, I like the Zootons version better. And they're one of those bands like Jet we were talking about last. I think it was last time. They're a short lived band, and it's kind of a bummer because I really liked them. They did 3 albums, and that was it.
Yeah, I read into their background a little bit. Their front man and their main songwriter seems like a little bit of a contentious dude, like maybe not the easiest guy to work with. Had very much had a vision for the group, and kind of clashed with record labels sometimes, and there are certain band members that you know wasn't left in the best. So I think that's part of the reason why they were sort of short lived. But I mean, obviously you never want to be in a situation like that. If if you're in a
Yeah,
band where somebody's kind of being a little bit toxic, but at the same time, he definitely had a really good vision for the music, because
for sure.
it's great. I mean, he had an idea for sound, and it works.
Yep, absolutely,
So
man. Yeah.
yeah.
All right, dog. I'll let you take over. I think my list is complete.
All right, yeah, nice list, man. Nice
Thanks,
list. All
dude.
right, so I got 3 left. So we talked about my 5 and 4 already. My number 3, I keep trying to do this when I can. I got my shirt on for my number 3 album. We got by Reliant K. And this is, yeah, that's not, I'm not saying that wrong. It's MMHMM. Is the name of the album. And this is the shirt I'm wearing is my wife and I got to go see they kind of like Muse did they do it with their Origins album, where they toured like an anniversary tour.
Yep. Yeah, like 10-year
Yeah.
anniversary. Yeah.
They Reliant K did a 10-year anniversary tour. This is the M10 tour.
Nice.
And they just played it from start to finish, and it was an absolute dream come true, man. Holy smokes. It was the venue was in Saxapahaw, North Carolina, a real city, Saxapahaw, North Carolina. It was the Saxapahaw Ballroom. And we literally took an exit off the highway. We're 100% sure that it was wrong, because we were just in farmland. Drove through farmland for like 20 minutes and parked in a parking lot where we actually picked up a nail in our tires. So we got a flat tire after the concert. We had to call AAA to come fix it for us. But like there was nothing out there except for this concert venue, pretty much. And it was this standing room only place, and there was an upstairs. So we were like, okay, we'll go upstairs, and so that we can like see down a little better. And we had these great spots. We were standing on the first balcony, and we could see everything perfectly. And there was literally 1 row of seats in the whole place, and they were in front of us. They were in front of where we were standing, and everyone was sitting down. But then Reliant K was the headliner, and when they came on, everybody stood up. And so we were like peeking through heads and stuff, like we can't see them. And I was like if I like held my head at one perfect angle, I could see like the lead singer's head and like a little bit of his guitar. And that was how we watched the whole show. But like in some ways it was almost cool to like not really see them that much, because we were just jamming out so hard, just having so much fun. But this is I've talked about Reliant K on the podcast a couple times before, and this is the last album I have that we'll talk about on our countdowns, and it's my favorite one. And honestly, my 3, 2, and 1 on of 2004 are probably in like my top 15 albums of all time.
Dang.
This being one of them. This is like to me, it's like they took a genre and they just perfected it. Like it's like they took like power pop and punk rock and just smushed them together, and like this is just the absolute perfect product that could have come out of it. 14 songs, uh, 13 of them are absolutely 100% winners. And the only one that's like maybe like not the 100% best song ever is really fun. It's kind of goofy. But yeah, a couple of my favorites, Be My Escape. That was a big kind of crossover radio hit for them. More Than Useless. If I'm in the right mood, that song will bring tears to my eyes. I love that song. Witch to Bury, Usher the Hatchet. Great song. The very last song, When I Go Down, definitely some Green Day influence in there. We talked about
Mhm.
Green Day. But yeah, by Reliant K.
Nice.
Such a good album.
Yeah, I never got like personally, I never got huge into Reliant K or like that sound, but it's definitely like you said, man. It's it's like them, kind of like we were talking about with Green Day. Like, yo, this is Reliant K. They definitely perfected that really fun pop punk sound. So that's really cool.
Yeah. Always a crazy experience to get to see one of your favorite albums performed like from
That's
start to
awesome.
finish too.
Yeah.
It's like because a lot of times you like you'll see a tour or like something like that and they'll play all the songs but they might like mix up the order, do some other like cover things in between or whatever. But like that one, they came out, they didn't say anything up front. They just started the first song and they just played it. It was almost
Dude.
like you were listening to the CD. It was kind of wild.
That's awesome,
Um,
man. The only time like I've missed a couple opportunities to see like those 10-year anniversaries. But it really is cool. Like I saw Brian Wilson do Pet Sounds
mm,
4 or 5 years ago, and they came out and played like an hour long encore. so,
nice.
so yeah, yeah, it's really cool like to see a band play an album all the way through, especially one of your favorites. So
Oh yeah.
yeah.
It's you kind of imagine it when you're a kid, like when you're listening to the album, you can almost like close your eyes and imagine like, what if I saw
Oh
this?
yeah.
And then like when it happens, you're like, oh my god, this is unbelievable.
Sweet man.
All right, there's my number 3. So I had a lot of trouble deciding what should be number 3 and number 2. I ended up putting that one at number 3, and at number 2, I ended up going with "The Lost Christmas Eve" by Trans-Siberian Orchestra. So for a long, long time, I had so much trouble deciding whether this or their first album, Christmas Eve and Other Stories, was my favorite. And now that I'm a mature adult, I can say with certainty that this is my favorite Trans-Siberian Orchestra album, The Lost Christmas Eve. It's
Sweet.
their 4th album. It's their 3rd Christmas album. And it's awesome. It's so good. This is another one that I've gotten the chance to see performed live. They didn't play every single track because it was a little too long. It's a 23 song album. But they played through the whole story. It's a concept album. And basically the reason why I put this at number 2 instead of number 3 is this is one of a very few albums that pretty much if I listen to it all the way in a row, it's gonna make me cry. It's gonna bring tears to my eyes. The story is so powerful of where the first half is just like such fun. It's just like one nonstop like fun thing after another, and then you pick up this character of this kind of like he's not like super old, but an older guy who's made some like experienced some really rough things. Like his wife died in childbirth, and his son that was born out of that ended up having like really severe mental disabilities. So it was like a huge double whammy for him of like he lost his wife and this the healthy son that they thought they were going to have. It was just not, he couldn't speak. He couldn't do much, and so he ends up getting separated from his son, like by his own choice. He basically decides that he can't handle it. And way later in his life, he's like having these reflections and regrets and wanting to reconnect. And he finds his son, and he finds that his son is like volunteering, and like even though he's maybe not uh like cognitively like fully developed, he's just like doing as much good as he can with his life. And it's just like it breaks me, man. And like they have this reunion, and just like a beautiful Christmas story. But the music is incredible as well. The Probably my favorite vocals on any Trans-Siberian Orchestra album. They've got Rob Evan playing the main character. He's an excellent singer. And some really awesome instrumentals. Wish List, Faith Noel, Wizards in Winter you hear on the radio 300 times every December. Christmas Jam, Siberian Sleigh Ride, but awesome singing songs as well. Christmas Cannon Rock. It's got all the girls singing. The Lost Christmas Eve. That was one that you and I used to play in the basement, just like jamming a lot.
Yeah.
We never played it live, but we used to just like rock out to the Lost Christmas Eve playing together a lot. It was a fun one to play.
Yeah, dude.
But yeah, man.
I didn't know about the whole story. That's really interesting. Like concept albums are cool, but that one sounds like it's like a legit like story. And I know that's how their live shows are too. Like it almost feels like a different experience, like not just a musical experience. So that's awesome. And I've always been a sucker for their instrumentals. They've got, I don't know, talk about like a legendary sound. Like nobody's ever going to sound like Trans-Siberian Orchestra. I remember like our music teacher in like third grade. I don't know if you remember this, but you got in an argument with her about electric guitar being in an orchestra. Do you remember that?
No, I don't remember that.
Yeah, she's like, it was the lady who always sang like Ghost Riders in the Sky or whatever.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You're like, she was like asking us like what our favorite things to listen to, where you're like Trans-Siberian Orchestra. She's like, ooh, orchestra. You're like, yeah, it's got electric guitar. She's like, an orchestra can't have electric guitar. You're like, yes, it can.
I don't remember that at all. That's amazing.
Yeah, dude. And then you like brought a song in and played it. And she's like, oh yeah, I guess it can.
Good for me.
I think that's a true story. Now I'm like, now I'm questioning myself. Maybe I imagined it, but I'm pretty sure.
No, I believe it. I mean, I believe that. That sounds like me. That sounds like something I would do.
That music teacher was classic. I don't even remember her name.
Miss Kimball.
Yes, dude. Yeah.
We used to do all the dances and stuff too.
Yeah, the belly button song.
Fried ham, cheese and bologna.
After the macaroni.
Yeah. I mean, we may as well sing it. We'll do that next time. Next time our opening segment we'll sing the fried ham, cheese and bologna song.
Yeah. What a great memory. Like I haven't sung that in years, and I remember all the words right when you started singing it.
Oh yeah. It's iconic. All right, and finally, my number one album is Miss Kimball's Children. My number one album of 2004 is very appropriately titled One. The album is called One, and it's by one of my absolute all-time favorite artists, Neil Morse. This is another concept album. So this is in 2002, I had Snow by Spock's Beard. That was Neil's old band. This is his second solo album after leaving Spock's Beard. And this is the beginning of what I call like the Neil Morse golden era, of when he had just perfected this sound that he was going for. And he was writing these amazing concept albums with these really powerful stories. So if you're going to be hearing a lot about Neil Morse over the next, six years or so, listeners. So get ready for it. But this concept album, it's kind of a mashup of. It's got like the Genesis story, like the creation of Earth and of man, and sort of like the fall from grace, and it's got some like Tower of Babel stuff in there. But it's also mixed with like some prodigal son story of like, like the son like leaves home and then realizes that they're not living life in a very good way and ends up coming back home. And it's also mushed up with some of like Neil's personal experience and like and some things that he experienced in his life. And It really works. The opening song is called "The Creation." I think it's like somewhere in like the 16 to 18 minute range. If anybody that I know is ever interested in Neil, it's always the first song. I'm always like, hey, listen to this. If you don't like it, then like it's not for you. If you like it, then like good, you're right. Like here's some more. It's just like this beautiful, beautiful, and it's like so. In my opinion, it is like the full realization of kind of his musical ability and like what he's able to bring to the table. Where you have like these amazing themes introduced, awesome arrangements. Phil Keaggy's got some guest guitar soloing on it. He's such a great guitarist. Super talented band that he's got together with Randy George playing bass and Mike Portnoy on the drums and some other guest people. Yeah, it's just there's some really powerful kind of like almost folky singer-songwriter songs spread throughout. The second track, The Man's Gone. The fifth song, Cradle to the Grave, is a duet with Phil Keaggy. Phil Keaggy sings on that one too.
Nice.
Yeah, and the last song, Reunion, I always say like it's a song that I want played at my funeral. It's like this beautiful like after the separation from God, you're like back together. You have this reunion, and it's like a party. And then the last like four minutes or so is just like this blissful, like beautiful layered like almost choral canon where you're singing all these like it's just I can't say like it's gonna be difficult for me to do it justice. He's not on Spotify, so if you want to listen to it, you can check out the YouTube playlist that's up in the card in the top right corner. So he's not on the Spotify playlist, but this is one. Just never get tired of it. If I listen to it all the way through, I cry usually twice. Once during Cradle to the Grave and once during Father of Forgiveness. Just oh man, can't say enough good things about this one.
Dude, the tears are flowing in 2004. That's
Really?
two albums in a row.
I know. And Reliant K has the song that makes you cry sometimes too. So
And Modest Mouse has a crying baby, so
you've
talked about Neil Morse a few times. I'm just curious, like I remember you I think it was high school when you started getting into him.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like he's not super well known. I could be wrong about that. But like how did you discover him? Because you're like a mega fan now.
Yeah, good question. So my wife's dad, my father-in-law, he was a music reviewer, a Christian music reviewer for a long time. And so even after he was done with that, he would still get sent like press release CDs, like CDs that you'd write a review about. And so one by Neil Morse, this was one that he got of like, hey, like review this. I talked to him about music a lot. He's a really big jazz guy, and we were talking about progressive rock one day. And he was like, "Hey, if you like progressive rock, like check this out." And it was actually built. The first time that I heard it, someone told me that it was like Trans-Siberian Orchestra but Christian. And when I put it on, that's not what it sounds like. So like the first time I played it, I was like, "Oh, that's not really what it is." Like it didn't really grab me. And then when I went back and listened to it again with that, like, okay, that's not what this sounds like. I'm going to listen to this as its own thing. Mm-hmm. And then it was like, oh my gosh, like this is unbelievable. But the thing about him too, and this is, we talk about prog rock and we joke about it a lot. But the thing about Neil that makes him stand out in the prog rock community for me are his melodies. Because prog rock is a genre where it's very easy to get very like intense and heady very fast. And sometimes you listen to the music and it doesn't have the most memorable melodies, and that could be on purpose, or it could just be that that's not the style that's there. But Neil has such a big Beatles influence that just like sort of melodic sensibility is just in his music. And so, you get these like 15, 18-minute tracks that are like, it seems like really long and inaccessible and like, oh, I don't want to sit down and listen to something for that long. But then you hear how catchy it is, like when the vocals come in and you're like, holy cow, that's a really catchy melody. I'm going to remember that chorus. I can't wait for that melody to come back. Like he just pulls you in that way. So there's answers to three questions that you didn't ask me, but I answered the one question at first.
Yeah, dude. No, that's awesome. Cool. I
Well, all
guess.
right. That is
Yeah, I
our.
guess
That's
that's
the
it.
end of our countdowns. Yeah, we'll recap it here. So Brian's top five. We had American Idiot by Green Day at number five. From a Basement on the Hill by Elliott Smith at number four. Eye to the Telescope by KT Tunstall at number three. Good News for People Who Love Bad News by Modest Mouse at number two. And Who Killed the Zootons by the Zootons at number one. My number five and four shared with Brian. Number five, Eye to the Telescope by KT Tunstall. Number four, Who Killed the Zootons by the Zootons. Number three, by Reliant K. Number two, The Lost Christmas Eve by Trans-Siberian Orchestra. And number one by Neil Morse.
Sweet. Dude, I just want to say, like, it's just really fun. We have such different musical tastes, but we also have a lot in common. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Oh man, it's a blast.
Like it gives people more stuff to listen to, just because like we're so different, but also the same.
Yeah, and hopefully we can inspire people that you don't have to fight with people whose music taste is not exactly the same as yours.
Yeah, exactly, man.
You don't have to tell them that they're wrong all the time.
Dude, yeah. I mean, I always say like there's something for everybody. Like I hate mainstream country, but if it makes people happy, then that's what you got to do, man.
Yeah.
So.
I will say, I don't want to drag us on too long because I know we've probably gone a little longer than we usually go even for this episode, but I've been listening to a ton of music to do these countdowns, and a lot of country music along with that. And I will say the thing that probably keeps me from listening to country music is the accents and the singing. It's just like hard for my ears. But the production quality of country music is so good. And a lot of times when you turn on a song, like the instrumental intro, like the first like 15, 30 seconds or whatever is like awesome. You like listen to these intros and you're like, this is really cool. And then that voice comes in and that's what kind of kills it for me. But like, that doesn't bother you. Like I totally understand like being really into that.
Yeah, dude. There you go. Country music rules.
Well, all right. So that was our 2004 episode. So we always like to give a little teaser for next time. Brian and we just talked about this. I think next time for our segment, we're going to talk about soundtracks. We were inspired by the MVP Baseball 2005 soundtrack, and we're going to talk about movie and video game soundtracks and how a soundtrack can make some other medium so much more effective and memorable.
Yeah, make or break.
And we'll also talk about our top 5 albums from the year 2005, which I've alluded to. It's probably my number one music year of all time. It's got my favorite album of all time on there as my number one. Mm-hmm. You got any teasers for your 2005 picks?
I'm looking at mine and I'm right there with you. It's one of my best, probably my second favorite so far.
Awesome.
Up through, yeah. So I'm excited about it.
All right, so we got some. Yeah, we got some. Tune in next time for sure if you want to hear some real rip roaring tunes.
Yeah. Sweet.
All right, we always say, guys, we hope you had as much fun listening to this as we had making it. We have an absolute blast hanging out with each other, talking tunes, having laughs, having a good time. This has been Blue Turnip's Bad Podcast About Good Music, 2004 Top 5 Albums Edition. Please be sure to tune in next time. We'll talk about soundtracks and we'll talk about the top 5 from 2005.
All right. We'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.